the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Anderson says that he will volunteer for that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for that. And as far as our roll call, looks like we have all our commissioners minus Chairman Troy Cunningham. And for the staff, I can't remember, do I have to say everyone's name? For the staff? I don't think, yeah, so I don't remember if we have to say the names. Okay, so everyone who's here is here? All right. Thank you. So I need a handicap, so I appreciate that. And then I want to just say, I want to just take my prerogative. So back there's a guy in a black shirt. He's my friend David Baldwin. He just flew in today from Sacramento. He was the Adjutant General for the California National Guard, the top ranking officer of the National Guard, and the largest National Guard in the country. And he just retired. So he was a 3-star general, and he's just here. He's a high school friend of mine. So we're going to, yeah. So I thought I'd just bring that up. Okay, let's go ahead and start for the item number 3, public input. So if there's anyone here who would like to make some public input or make some comments about items that are not on the agenda, now's your time to do so. Okay, so it seems like there isn't anyone here for that, so we're going to go ahead and close public input and start with business item number 4 on the agenda, the Blome Building Site Plan located on 2179 North Redwood Road. Andy Togish as applicant, sorry if I butchered your name, and then Kent Page will be presenting. Oh, did I not do something? No. And
there we are. There's a green light.
Thank you.
Here's an aerial view of the general location. They're kind of on the corner of Fall Harvest Drive and Redwood Road. Here's the overall site plan. The building size is about 6,000 square feet. The lot size about 38,000. Landscaping, they'll have about 11,700 square feet. And the parking stalls is 37. Here's just a real general view of the landscaping plan and the elevations. Staff's recommendation is to approve the proposed site plan with the findings and the conditions in the staff report. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those at this time. And Andy, the applicant, is also here to address any questions you might have.
Terrific. Thank you for that. Is the applicant, if you'd like, if you could just step up to the seat up there. To the seat, right? Or the podium, either one. Yeah, that's good. And then for the record, could you please state your name and your address? I need to.
Push the button. Oh, am I good? Andy Tongish, ALT Architecture. My address is 1445 West, 8660 South, West Jordan.
Would you like to add any comments or anything to the presentation?
No, we've met with the city, the engineers, worked on all their comments that they've had. The owner, Ryan Blom, is back here also, whose building it is. He'll be the main tenant of the building with his insurance company. Other than that, it'll just be open for new tenants. As soon as we get the building going, then he'll start looking for other tenants to fill it. So if there's any other things from you guys?
Okay, thank you. This is a public meeting, so we will not have a hearing from the public. And I will now open up the meeting to the planning commissioners for their comments. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, got it.
Did it come on, or did
Yeah.
it is on? Okay, so we'll start with Commissioner McConkey, and then we'll go to Commissioner Barton.
Thank you. I just a simple question. The site plan is showing stairs. The plan, of course, is a little, actually pretty blurry on this one. The site plan is showing, although I did see yours, Sarah, that you sent, and Kent, we appreciate you resending those. The stairway, it's leading to a basement, is that correct?
Yes.
And there's nothing in the city ordinance prohibiting stairways to a basement on the exterior of a building along Redwood Road, is there? I didn't see anything.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Yeah, my comment was not that I'm aware of, and then our planning director confirmed that, so.
Thank you. Okay, and then Commissioner Barton, if I could get you, okay, there we go.
No, mine's not super important. Is it State Farm Insurance?
Yes.
Is that what you are? Yeah. I just have to, I'm just saying this just because this was like 15 years ago, but when you first moved out to Saratoga Springs, my son was trying to get donations for banners at Westlake High School. And we went into you, and you did it. And I just thought that was so nice because you were brand new to Saratoga. Anyway, so it's nothing to do with this or anything like that. I just wanted to be like, oh. Giving away money. Anyway, I saw your name, and then he said insurance. I'm like, oh, I know this guy. Anyway, very much appreciated, like, literally, like, probably 10, 12 years ago. So, anyway, that's all I have. Nothing else.
Anybody, any other commissioners? Okay, I have a couple comments. Oh, I'm obviously on. On page 13 of the packet, there are a few can complies concerning lighting for the basin type. Any issues with complying with the ordinance that you foresee?
No, we've done the photometrics and everything with them, and we've got the building is lit up how we've discussed, and we've got a few, I can't remember how many offhand, site lights, and they are the decorative lights that the city requires.
Okay. Any issues from the city regarding that, those can complies then?
Yeah, just that they follow the conditions that we've listed in the site plan, one of which is the parking lot lights. Other light poles require a minimum of like 16-inch decorative base, and that all parking lot lighting will be turned off or reduced according to code. So there are particular conditions that we want to have in place with recommended approval.
Okay. And the applicant doesn't foresee any issues with complying with those then?
Not that I have, but
Okay, terrific.
no, we'll meet all those requirements.
Okay. And then further down, also can comply for the lighting plan, for a photometric plan. Any issues with providing the photometric plan?
I thought we did, that they should have had it. If not, we can do it again. I know we've done it, and the engineering side has looked at it.
Okay. There's a comment, it says indicate full cutoff and provide base details that meet code requirement of 16-inch decorative base. Is that, I think that's probably what you're saying earlier, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay. Is it in the, okay. So no issues
We'll match it.
anticipated.
Yep.
Terrific. Okay, and then that's it for me as well. So any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, then I'm open to entertaining them, or I'm open to entertaining. I'm entertaining motions.
Move to approve the proposed site plan of the Blom building on Lot 7 of the Harvest Point Commercial Plat A at 2179 North Hillcrest Road in the RC zone with the finding conditions listed.
One minor correction, the address is actually Redwood Road, so.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Is it 2179 Redwood Road?
That's
then?
that's right. In
Correct.
fact, I had caught in that.
Sorry
and
for that.
You're right. I'll restate my motion. I move to approve the proposed site plan of the Blom. Am I saying that right? Blom?
Blom.
Blom?
It was blown. You had it right.
Halfway in between?
You're
Blom?
right.
Okay.
I've been saying it wrong.
The Blom building on Lot 7 of the Harvest Point Commercial Plat A at 2179 North Redwood Road in the RC zone with the findings and the conditions listed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Barton. Any questions to the motion? Okay, all those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, vote nay. Okay, so we have a unanimous vote. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. We're moving on to item number 5 on the agenda. This is a public hearing for Alpine Springs Internal Accessory Dwelling Unit Map Amendment located approximately wherever on Marie Way and Foothill Boulevard. Ken will be presenting, Ken Young.
Is this on? There we go. Yeah, Commissioners, this is our second map amendment since we have gone through and put the ordinance together. This one, the application for this one came in just before the recent ordinance amendment was approved by City Council, which put into place noticing requirements and a fee, which you reviewed earlier. So they were not subject to that, but this is otherwise meeting the intent of what we were looking for, and which is basically that a representative of a non-HOA neighborhood could present an application which represents at least 66% of the owners in that area, which in this case, Alpine Springs is a subdivision which has not yet been developed, but it has been platted. So I'll show that on the map here, shows the location of this particular property. It shows on this map erroneously that it is a non-residential area. That's why it's shown in gray. That was a map error because it was already zoned for residential and the residential plats have been approved on that property. So they are requesting that they be IADU approved. It should have been showing as IADU potential, but we have determined that the best way to go about these things, even if it is IADU potential, it will require a public hearing and process to make it approved, just in case there are other concerns in regards to the roadways and other issues that might affect that property. The City Council expressed to us earlier that they would like to be able to review these things as they come forward before they are approved. So we will just skip the potential designation and go directly to approved. At least that's the request. So this shows the area. So it's right near the intersection of Foothill Boulevard and Pony Express Parkway, actually with access on Marie Way, right near the schools on that busy school area. So it does, the request is for the two plats, plats A and B, which has a total of 63 lots. So they would like to have IADU approval on that entire area. This does not mean that all the homes will be built with IADUs. It just means that they are approved for them should they decide to do that. Based on the review that we had determining that the designation of non-residential was in error and their request to go for approved, and with the review by the engineers and our fire department, they did not express any concerns with this application. So we recommend approval.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? yeah, could you please step up and just give us, tell us your name and your address?
Yeah, my name is Robert Lusk with Fieldstone Homes, and my address is 11643 South Prosperity Road in South Jordan.
Okay, thank you. And any comments or anything you'd like to add to what Ken Young has given us?
Yeah, just I think in addition, we are under construction with the roads and the infrastructure out there for our first phase, and we'll plan on recording that in the next couple weeks. And then, yeah, like Ken said, we want to incorporate ADUs as an option on a few of our house plans. So home buyers can come in and they can option that and have that built in from day one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open up the podium or the mic for comments from any folks who are here. So go ahead, if you are here to comment on this item, please go ahead and step up to the podium. Okay, it looks like there's no one here for comment on this item, so I'm going to go ahead and close public hearing, and we'll open up the comments from the Planning Commission. Okay, first. So Commissioner Anderson, and then Commissioner Sprotsy Burns, and then Commissioner Ryan.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Ken, is this the last of the applications that have come in prior to our decision?
Yes.
There's no more pending out there?
No.
Okay. Second, do you anticipate this being a regular thing where builders like Fieldstone do exactly what they're doing and add this in? Like these requests are going to come in not from neighborhoods necessarily, but from builders?
Yeah. I think there will be some from certain developments and, but it's hard to say, but I'm sure we'll see more.
Okay. My last question is, the recommendation from the staff was to forward a positive recommendation. I know this is it Marie Lane or Marie Drive or whatever? I know it's a really fragile, if you will, and when it comes to traffic around school time. Was that considered in the staff's recommendation, I guess is my question.
It was addressed by both the engineers and the fire department as far as access and the ability of that road to handle traffic. Of course, there are existing concerns because of the school traffic in that area. I suppose the way that we have looked at it is a few homes or even several homes with IEDUs does not necessarily increase traffic. When you have a large family with teenagers, several cars, just one family living in that home, that can impact roadways more than a home with an IEDU. Maybe it's a couple with a small family in the basement. So it's really no different in the end.
Yeah, okay. I just think if there were ever a case, and this is for my fellow commissioners, if there were ever a case where maybe we wouldn't, it might be something like this, in this kind of a location, as fragile as it is around that road and at school time, where it just kind of cripples the whole area. I'm not saying I'm against it. I just wanted to know what conversations the staff had in making that recommendation.
Well, and we certainly recognize that it is, as you mentioned, a fragile area, but there are other items going forward, whether IEDUs were in this neighborhood or not, there's going to be increased issues as far as traffic going through that area simply because it's developing.
Yeah.
But with the future improvement of Foothill Boulevard turning into ultimately Mountain View Corridor, there will be other situations developed for access and perhaps, underpasses and whatnot. So those things will come into play as that area or that roadway is further developed.
Great, thank you.
So I just want to add, even when they are allowed, it doesn't mean everybody does it. And so then we're finding, like even say 1 in 4 homes, which would probably be a high number, might, you know what I mean? So we're not finding that just because we allow it, everybody does it.
Can I add something there too? When we offer the ADU as an option in the home, the square footage and the footprint of the home doesn't change. So what is designated as living spaces, like bedrooms, will be swapped out for an IADU. So the ADU option actually has less bedrooms in the home than than the base plan does. So you have fewer bedrooms with an IADU.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Spelsy Burns?
Yeah, so how many of the lots in this development actually meet the size requirements that are already out for IADUs? So like what potential could have an IADU?
All of them, they all meet the requirements.
Okay. And then for the city, what percentage of areas left for? Wait, so we had like, we could only say 25% was not IADUs. So does this affect that at all? This doesn't affect that at all.
Well, it will, a small percentage change that. It'll increase, it was 17 point something percent, I don't remember the exact number, that was designated as prohibited. So this will take away from that a little bit, but not significant. Well, no, actually it won't, because on the map, this was designated erroneously, as I mentioned, as non-residential. So we were looking at the residential acreages. So this is going to add to, I guess in the end, when you take the overall percentage of, you know, which are approved and which are not, we are increasing the acreage, but then we're putting some of it into. Yeah, so we'll look at the total of what that actually is, but it's not taking away from the existing prohibited percentage, but the overall percentage will increase because that was designated erroneously.
Yeah.
Pulled up the map. So we did, all of the light green that you see is potential, right? So the red, you can't have it. The green, you can have it. So you can see right now, green is Fox Hollow, and then the recent, and then some of Beacon Point, and then we did a recent approval near, like north of IHC, I forgot what that one's called. And then this one that we're discussing is in gray here.
So yeah, it'll change the percentages a little bit, but it's not going to get us anywhere near the maximum capacity either.
Right, yeah. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the comments from fellow commissioners. I feel like they are hitting upon some of the questions I had in my mind as well. I just wanted to make sure I drill down to the right spot to understand completely. So when you said it's an option on a few house plans, but then you just said that it's available on all the house plans when Commissioner Sprosty Burns asked. So is it a few or is it all of the house plans?
I think if I understood your question right, it was how many of the lots meet the requirements, and all of the lots meet the requirements, but we're only offering it on a few of the house plans. I think it's 3 of 6 have it as an option.
Okay, and so out of the 3 of the 6, are there any, like for you as you develop the land, is there any restrictions? Let's say that I go and buy model home A plan, Commissioner Kilgore buys model A plan. Can we build the same house right next to each other? Or do they have to be dispersed out so then we're sort of self-limiting those models that are available? Does that make sense? So that we don't all have model A homes, right? That all have the accessory dwelling units available to all of us. But if I'm the first one there, I enter a contract with you, I get the model A home, that means that 4 homes away is the next chance that you would have to build a model A home. Do you have anything like that in place, or can you just build whatever model you want?
I'm not sure if there's a code that won't allow you to build the same floor plan next to each other. At Fieldstone, we don't have anything.
You don't have anything from Fieldstone. That's what I'm asking is from
no.
Fieldstone. You don't have anything that limits like the shape the neighborhood takes or the.
No, we typically don't put the same. If the same plan is next to each other, it won't have the same elevation, so it'll be a different elevation and different colors, with different roof line. That is something we do, but it could be the same plan and it could also have an 80, unless there's a city code that doesn't allow that. Okay.
And then the other question I had is more towards staff. It's interesting to me, like I'm wondering if we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish when we went through this process, and then we really wanted to have the voice of the residents be able to be the ones, at least in my mind, I kind of felt like that, like with the 60% and getting the right signatures. But then we sort of circumvent the whole thing at the early stages, and a builder will come in and say, hey, I would like to have this designation. And if I'm a builder in today's housing market, which is only be drastically changing in the next little bit and already has, I don't see why, if I'm a builder of a new subdivision, why I wouldn't be here at the city requesting this. Does that make sense? Because it's only going to make these properties much more attractive, giving the housing market and the way that it is changing and the way that's going to change from our friends at the feds. So is that accomplishing what we want to accomplish?
Has a very good comment. One of the things when you talk about involving the residents, we didn't want to change it on them after the fact. I think one benefit to this is they know, the whole neighborhood knows going into it, so nothing's changed on them after the fact. And that is a really good question. How do we involve them in this situation? They would know going into it. So I think that at least we know that, that they know the whole neighborhood is allowed when they buy.
And then the changes that we've made then, I guess, is the hope. This is the last one in that regard, but the changes that we made then, the hope is that those neighborhoods would also be notified. Was that correct, that we would have to notify? I can't remember what it said.
That neighborhood, yeah, that is the requirement. From anything here on out, they will be noticed.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And I actually don't have any comments myself. So at this point, if there aren't any other questions, oh, sure.
So I kind of agree with Commissioner Anderson's location. I think that location's awful, but we say that every single time something is coming in there. But what I do appreciate is what Sarah had just said, is that at least we know, right? People moving in, people buying houses there. If we're going to do it, I think this is the right way to do it, where people know that the ADUs will be there. It's not people trying to jam, and I'm one of those people who have adult kids. I live at home, so we have 7 cars. But, so I just like that, hey, maybe we can add that cement, or, what I'm saying? So you can kind of add the extra parking if you have a plan with that, or you can add something extra. That's what I like about this, is that all the location is ideal, but that beforehand, before you're building. You're not trying to add it afterwards and trying to add whatever whatever you need to make sure that, you meet the requirements for it. So I like that a little bit better about how we're doing it like that, so.
Thank you for that. Yours has been blinking all day.
It's on now. Engineering just wanted to add a little on traffic. About a week ago, we met, the school started a traffic committee, and we had a meeting out with them, and they're trying to work on their traffic internally, and they have made requests of the developer, which, from my knowledge, have been accepted as far as easing traffic during certain times of the day during construction, and it may not pertain to the future, but just wanted to inform the committee.
Thank you for that. And then Commissioner Ryan?
They've actually been looking at they've been looking at letting the bus loop open up for parents as well after the buses have gone. I guess that was one of the things that they asked if that was going to be a possibility, because right now the bus loop is designated buses only, and a good percentage of the time it's just sitting there with nobody there. So they're really trying to improve the traffic in that area. There's not a lot we can do. It's private property. Marie is actually a private road.
Marie's public. So.
Oh, it's 750. 750 belongs to the district, but I think they're going in the right direction. They're going to be pulling some of the parents, but they are trying to do something. They know it's a bad situation there, and of course the kids' safety is paramount, and they're trying to juggle safety with congestion, with the construction. They've got their work cut out for them, but we were able to meet with them, and they're trying to move in the right direction. Just some extra information.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I thought I knew there was something else, and I apologize. So I just have another question. So I asked around the intent, is this what accomplishing what we want to accomplish? I guess, and then we're kind of tying the pieces together saying, well, there'll probably be more developers coming in and requesting this. And I feel like we have the right checks and balances in place when a neighborhood is established and for the things we're asking those residents to provide to the city to demonstrate that there is, a willingness, or at least a majority of folks are okay with that. But how do we as a commission, let's say sitting in this seat now, what are the checks and balances that we have, and how do we, without just sounding arbitrary, because the words that were used was, well, this is a sensitive area, and that was because Commissioner Anderson's much more well-spoken than I am. I would call it a you-know-what show when you drive over there every morning, because I drive by it every morning, and I'm glad I don't have to drive into it. And that's really what it is. So how do we as a city, how do we, and this is more just a broader question, this isn't necessarily for your application, I appreciate your patience with this, but how do we say no without being arbitrary, I guess? Because we have bad feelings about this area. We have had so many things come up specifically in this area. I'm just using this as a case in point, because then we'll get the next one the next little area of the city that's going to flare up and have a lot of development going on. How do we, without just arbitrarily choosing that we like this developer or not this developer, this plan or not this plan, how do we come up with our better standards? And maybe I missed them, but how do we say no and defend that?
I'll address move. I think the fact that this has already been approved, the subdivision, the 2 plats have already been approved, so we know that development is going in. We know that 63 lots will have single-family homes on them. So that will impact that area. That is a concern. And I think that's been addressed earlier too, when those plats were brought forward, that there is a concern about how that moves forward. That doesn't mean this property shouldn't be developed as per the zoning. It just means we have some traffic concerns, and there are motions going forward and ultimate plans to improve that in the future. How quick that's going to happen probably isn't going to satisfy a lot of people, but the fact is the zoning allows for it, and the only addition that we're doing here is adding the capability for IADUs. Then the question is, does that really increase the density in a neighborhood? And I am not aware of any studies that have been performed, and perhaps there are some out there, that show that a neighborhood with IADUs versus a single-family neighborhood without is substantially more impactful than the other, simply because most homes that have IADUs in them are not occupied by families of a large size. They're usually occupied by a smaller family or just a couple or a single person. They have extra room in their basement, whereas the next door neighbor has a large family using that basement. So the density in reality does not increase. So we would have to come up with some scientific basis or something that would show that, yeah, there's additional concern that there will be impacts of this neighborhood that has already been platted and approved per zoning because we're adding IADUs, and that's the difficulty.
I was going to add right now that we don't have criteria for a denial. So it's a new code to the city, and we have processed, I think this is our second application of this type. So it's a good question. We don't have criteria for denial. Fred, if there was a case where we want a denial, would we need criteria in our code? Or is it similar to plan or not? Being compatible, so things like that. So you could make findings for denial if you chose to.
I appreciate the background. I just feel like, well, there's really no tools in our toolbox to say no at this, like when a developer comes. I just feel like we need to, I agree with everything in terms of, I don't think it's going to, wreck this entire neighborhood that every single home is going to have the accessory dwelling unit. By any means, but I do feel like, as a city, we have a different set of interests than the developer has in coming forward and wanting these changes. I think our residents align more closely with, what our interests may be predominantly. I don't want to speak for all of them, but I feel like we should at some point try to get a little bit ahead of this curve and try to think through those reasons as to why and where we would say no, because I feel like we're just going to get these repeated applications, and if we're just getting these repeated applications, then it almost becomes a useless exercise, in my opinion. Sorry. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I would just point out that there are code provisions, and Ken mentioned them too, that talk about roads and safety and different considerations that do have to be met. So there is some criteria related to that. So I just wanted to point that out.
But have we spelled that out, I guess, is my, because I heard what I said. I said, we checked with the fire marshal, we checked with engineering. That's a pretty loose term, in my opinion. Like, I don't know what that, like, did you call the fire marshal and be like, hey, I don't know what his name is, unfortunately, but hey, Bill, what's your thoughts on Marie Way? That's good. Okay, we checked with them. You see what I'm saying? Like, I would rather us see that we are proving to the residents, that we're doing our due diligence in a more matter-of-fact way.
Okay.
And I'll get off my soapbox, but I just feel like we're going to get a lot of these, so we should prepare ourselves.
And you're right. We probably should spell that out a little bit more as to what our concerns might be. We do have currently in the code provision for any neighborhoods that were approved less than the current standard, that if they should come forward and request to be approved, if they're currently prohibited, that would be a reason for us to deny it. But as far as a new subdivision that's built to current standards, that may not be something we can fall on. I don't know. But something for us to consider. Thank you.
Commissioner Sprossy Burns.
Yeah, so if I remember right, when we were discussing this, one of the many times we discussed it before, we did talk about developers coming in and asking for a development to be proposed. And I think we talked about it being, we wanted to have it more like citizen focused and citizen led. Am I remembering that wrong?
No, that is the way that the code is drafted. So if there were already homes in there, then 60% of those homeowners would have to sign that they were supporting this. But where the owner is Fieldstone. So there's a single owner right now. There's not multiple owners right now. So they're 100% rather than, we require a minimum of 60% of the 66% of the owners to be in support within their subdivision plat.
So I guess I would just echo a lot of what was previously said in that we should probably take a second look at these and how we want to deal with when developers are asking, because then it does turn into who's making the most money and not what the citizens are looking for. The second thing I want to say, though, too, Ken, is that when you have a large family living in a house, there's an expected timeline for how long those people will live, unless you're the Bartons, in that house. But when you have an IADU, that changes that expected timeline. So let's say you've got teenagers, they're only living in the house and driving for 2 years, or in the Bartons' case, ever. Yeah. Right. So you only have additional wear and strain and traffic and all of that for a set amount of time, where an IADU is going to have that for potentially the entire time.
But then you want to also consider that once that large family's kids grow up and leave, that they may want to turn part of their basement into an IADU. So that density and impact could continue with that home. Also, with a home that's built with an IADU, rather than building 5 bedrooms for that large family, they're building 2 or 3 for the main occupant and maybe 2 for the other residential units. So it's no different in density.
You're
The
using a lot
potential
of
for the same density exists either way.
You're using a lot of potential, though, and not. And I mean, you said that there's no studies that you've seen that it makes an impact, but have you seen studies where it doesn't make an impact?
Well, that would go both ways, so no.
Okay, so are you looking at studies where it doesn't make an impact?
We'll certainly try to find some. But, this is different in its application in a lot of different communities, depending on the makeup of the community. There's a lot of places where an IADU is more in demand than here in Saratoga Springs, say Salt Lake City or something, where they are really in a housing crunch and they need to put, maybe they're renting out more homes for students because they're in a university town. The makeup of the community can vary and have different impacts on whether or not IEDUs are beneficial.
Correct. My point is that I've heard you on a couple of occasions be very positive towards IEDUs and make statements like, we haven't seen any studies that there is not a negative impact. But I haven't heard you say, we haven't seen any studies where there is a negative impact.
I'm just saying
So
it's the same.
you're coming across as very biased towards this situation, and that's fine. Everyone has a bias, right? But I just feel like at this point you've expressed that bias multiple times, and it should probably be called out.
Oh, well, I think I should point to the map that has been approved, and that there is only a maximum of 25% of the area that can prohibit them. So that what that says is we are anticipating 75% of the community will be approvable. So
Right.
what I'm saying is this falls in that category.
Correct.
So I'm sorry that if I come across biased, I guess what I'm trying to present it as the reality of our situation.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something?
I could figure this out. Are you done?
Oh, yeah.
Or-
Thanks. This is an interesting, we're kind of in the whole state. Well, let me start here. Just as a reminder to all of us that the state gives us powers to enact laws and to do what we do. But they can limit that. And previously, we as a community, generally speaking, didn't really want the IADUs here. And there's a lot of communities that way. And then the state, who gives us the power to enact laws and so forth, then removed some of that power and said, yes, you will. And not only yes, you will, but you must allow at least 75% of the city. And so there's a lot of communities that have scrambled and that are scrambling as to how to deal with this, how to be fair, how to work with something that they didn't want to allow even in the first place. I think it would be a great idea to see if there's some studies out there that address the impact of the IADUs. I don't know of any. I have heard others, outside of this city, say the same thing. We just don't know. And part of it too, and I agree with something that Ken said, and we see it in, for example, in Provo, and the homes turning into apartments, whether they're legal or not, I don't know. But we don't know how that's going to impact. You made a great point in that, as families grow up, you start with, a few, and then you increase the size of the family, and then by the end of that, there's a high likelihood if they don't move, then they're back to 2 or 3 or sometimes 1. And so when you look at this, and this is all statistically based, because this is just educated guessing. And so you look at if we're allowing the IADUs, it is very possible that when you look at the entire neighborhood, that the population of the neighborhood could statistically increase, which I think is what you're saying, at a higher level, sustainably. Being in the residential construction industry for 30 years, I've never heard, and even a lot of the discussions about what the statistics say. I know that there's some statistics about how many people typically reside in a single-family dwelling. Utah is unique, of course, because we have higher per capita and so forth. But the bottom line is we don't really know how this is going to impact. It's going to impact other cities differently than it impacts us. If we have a university come here or a campus, that certainly is going to be a huge game changer. But in my mind, we keep going back to the state and what the direction was from the state was a game changer for our community. The other thing is along with that, required 75% allowance, the best, and I think that the staff came up with a great way to deal with this. Is it perfect? I don't know, but I think it's a great way. We've got a lot of undeveloped land, and we've got a number of communities that have, up to this point, not allowed, and many that don't want to allow the IADUs. And so those have to be part of the 25%. And so now we're left with a lot of this undeveloped property that doesn't matter what we say, we have to allow the IADUs. And I don't remember what the percentage of the non-IADU areas within the city.
25% can be prohibited.
So
we're
where
not
are we
there
at
yet.
right now? Are we like 22%?
We got about 8 or, around there percent left that can be prohibited.
Okay, because I knew we were kind of in the teens or 20s or something like that. So we have some freedom, but we don't have anything in our ordinance. And in my mind, I struggle to understand a legal and a reasonable way of developers coming and saying, look, I own 10 acres, I own 20 acres, and I want to build. I want this to be IADU approved because I want to build every one of those homes. I want to put a basement apartment in there because I can make a lot more money. Now, how's that going to impact the city? I don't know if there's any studies that are done that, and maybe there are, and it might be worth looking. But at the same time, from a legal perspective, I think it would be really difficult, and it might even shoot us in the foot as a city if we were to tell the developers, we don't want you to have the ability to make more money by putting these apartments in there. And so I feel like that due to the mandate from the state, it just, you might say in a way, it strips us of that ability to provide that level of limitation on the developers.
I'd just like to add that when we initially did our map last October to meet the state requirement, we quickly put a map together to meet the 25%. And it was determined that that wasn't acceptable. That's not the way the city council wanted to do it. So we did try to be very liberal in our approach to what could be considered part of that 25% prohibited area. So we didn't just look at the boundaries of a residential zone, but we took out of the acreage in that zone schools, parks, streets, easements, anything that is not actually a buildable lot, and anything that is not at least 6,000 square feet. And so all of that was taken out so that we could consider more areas within that 25%. That was by direction, or the assumed direction that staff got from city council, and ultimately what was approved by city council. So,
and based on the vagueness of the requirement of the state, I think that was
Right.
a fantastic approach.
Right, it worked within what we got, but there are other communities, most communities that I've talked to that have done, they either have just approved it in all of their residential zones, or they've done just 25% of our residential zones. The whole boundary area of that residential zone falls within the 25%, which makes it so that there's less area that can be prohibited. So we actually tried to make it so that the intent of what we heard from city council and those that have expressed desires or concerns from the city is that there is actually more, or all of the developed areas, except for a couple of exceptions, are within the prohibited. So that does, push it out into just the potential areas, the new developed areas. And so, yeah, there are ways we can probably look at having more requirements or thresholds they need to meet so that we can turn them into an approved area. But that's something we'll have to look at more. So I apologize if it feels like I'm promoting IADUs. I'm promoting the opportunities that have been placed before us and the restrictions that have been given us from the state. So we can't just go out and say, no, we don't want it.
We used to be able to, but
that
no
opportunity is
longer.
gone. We have to permit it in certain areas.
Yeah, and I'd like to publicly, if there's anybody online or listening who's trying to get their planning degree or some other kind of graduate degree that wants to do a study, I think this would be a fantastic study to do to determine what kind of impact that, you know, we in the state of Utah can anticipate and kind of give us a little bit more insight. Just for the record, just throwing that out there. But anyway, great discussion. Thanks, Ken.
Okay. So, as far as my comments go, I apologize to the applicant that, you're kind of or at least you're caught in the middle of our discussion. But as far as your application goes, I think it's terrific. And I just want to remind everybody that although we're focused on IADUs, remember that the greater objective of the state is really moderate income housing. Or is that the right way to say it? The moderate income housing, yeah. And, you know, as Commissioner McConkey pointed out, that a lot of cities resisted IADUs, or it's actually, we resisted moderate income housing, and that's why the state's now forcing certain, ways of trying to make it happen in different ways, and one way is the IADU. So this is really just a part of a lot bigger picture. So if we don't want IADUs, so the state wants it. A lot of residents do. A lot of residents may not. But if the city resists, then there's going to be other areas where we're going to be probably required by the state to increase more moderate income housing, which we already know that residents don't like that either. Usually it's higher density types of homes that, like the multifamily housing that goes against our Proposition 6. Yeah. Things like that. So if we close all avenues, the state has no choice but to force it. And so consider that when we say something, especially in this particular application where it's a new build and 100% of the residents or potential residents are in agreement with this because it's basically you. And it's really pretty moderate as far as impact goes. I mean, yes, there are always going to be traffic issues. There'll be traffic issues with moderate housing, with higher density, with multifamily housing. It's also just the particular geography of this area. But those are going to be issues with any developer who comes in, whether it's IADUs or not. And then, like my own case, it's just anecdotal, but we had 4 people living in our house. Our house has 6 bedrooms, and we had 4 people living in it. And then 2 of them are now off to college. So now there's only 2 people living in a 6-bedroom house. So of course I'm considering IADUs, and I'm more than glad that there's at least a potential if we decide that we want to do it. So for me, the bias is for IADUs. So when we ask, I think we really do need more information, but just as Commissioner Spasi Burns has said, we all have biases. And I do think that it seems like some of the biases that we have here on the Planning Commission is that IADUs are possibly negative and we need to look at it, as opposed to some people see it as it's completely positive, but we still need to look at it. And so I welcome more of these applications, especially since there's very few can complies or don't complies on something like this. You do already comply, and so welcome. And I hope that we keep those, those comments just in balance, because this is the bigger issue is moderate income housing. And if we don't allow it, especially with an applicant that meets all criteria, then it's going to be forced on us from the state. So just keep that in mind. But I welcome all the comments, though. I think they're all good and all that. And it's probably something that we need to have the staff to look at, so that we don't take up the applicant's time while we figure out what we need to do, to get our house in order. So thank you for your patience. If there are no other comments, I'm open to motions. Sorry, I didn't see that.
I just wanted to. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on echoing the chair's comments for this evening, and then also the initial question. Is that something that staff is amenable to, at least taking a look at around when a developer comes? What are the things that we're looking at, and then maybe have an additional discussion around that. I just wanted to try and reinforce that. That's my whole point. When we talk about biases, well, I'm biased. I feel like I need to be biased towards the city and look for the city's interest in protection. And I feel like when we have the right tools, then I feel like I'm doing my job better for the city. And I feel like I feel like we have a great tool for established neighborhoods. I really do. And I want to reiterate, the work that's been done so far by staff has been tremendous, because we're all wading out into this together because of what's been mandated down from the state. So we have the right parameters, we have the goalposts, right? We know where the percentages need to be. Now I just want to be able to say, as fairly and as dispassionately as possible when a developer comes, that we are doing our part to say, okay, these things that we've agreed upon as a city staff and as a commission are or are not being met. I feel like we put ourselves in a better position. So if that's something staff is amenable to, I just wanted to reiterate that my request for that. And hopefully there's some things that we could look at, like we've done on the developed neighborhood side, that we could at least point to a few things, rather than just, otherwise it's just a yes, and we should just have not made things so hard this evening for the last hour.
Yeah, we
Sure.
appreciate that feedback for sure, and we will look into that more.
Okay, so with that, I'm opening up Planning Commission for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend to the city council approval of the Alpine Springs request to amend the IADU map to designate that neighborhood as IADU approved, as outlined in the staff report, with findings and conditions listed as well.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second, we have a first from Commissioner McConkey and a second from Commissioner Spilsby Burns. Any question to the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Thank you. We have a unanimous vote. Appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are ready for the next item, item number 6 on the agenda. This is a public hearing for Wildflower Community Plan Third Major Amendment, located approximately on Mountain View Corridor and State Road 73. Caitlin Mickelson is the applicant, DIA applicant, or DIA Utah as applicant. And then Tippy will be presenting. All right.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. Tonight we have the third major amendment to the Wildflower Community Plan before you. The City Council is required to review certain types of changes to community plans. So this is before you because they are requesting some changes to the development standards. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a big amendment, but it's a major amendment by code. And then we have Nate Ship here for Caitlin from DAI Utah as well. Just a quick summary of the changes that you have before you today. They are updating setback standards. We had type 3 and 2 under the same category in the community plan, which is how it was before we did the large amended and restated community plan. So they're just differentiating between the type 2 and 3 homes. So they're both under 5,000 square foot lots for single family, but one is a cluster type, like those detached townhomes with the shared driveways, and then the other type is just a standard single family type. They're also requesting some homes to have driveways less than 20 feet. So we made sure that this was, one of the conditions is that this is only in Village 7 in the area shown here, which is in the staff report, and that if they are going to have shortened driveways, they meet the new code standards, which weren't in place at the time of the community plan amendment when we adopted the overall document, that they meet those standards. So that's what they do have, and they do comply with that. They're also requesting updates to their private roadway cross-sections to show standard public utility locations. We did get a recent update with some discussions with Jeremy Lappin, our Public Works Director. He's also requested that they add in a few extra sheets with a little disclaimer. Nothing's changed on those sheets, but he wanted these 2 notes added. So we got those late Tuesday evening. So we didn't include them. We didn't update the packet, one day before, but we've added these 2 conditions that we're recommending with the condition of approval if you choose to go that route to give to the City Council. So several sheets, the landscaping and utility sheets will just say that they're going to be per city standards and that they're going to be subject to a future community plan update. So after this amendment, we're going to sit down with the applicant and make sure that we have a more up-to-date plan for these sheets specifically. I think a lot of things have changed with the city and with the landscaping that the applicant has chosen to do. For instance, a few of the parks in Wildflower are now going to be public instead of private. Previously, we've stated in the community plan that all open space is private, so we have had a few changes, so that will be coming forth in another major amendment this year, likely. And so with that, I'll turn this back over to the commission for your questions.
Thank you for that. Applicant, if you would, is it turned on? Yes. Oh, yeah, okay. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
You bet. My name is Nate Ship. I'm at 14034 South, 145 East in Draper, Utah.
Okay, thank you for that. And do you have any comments or things you'd like to add to Pete's report? I'm sorry, I'm calling you by first name. I just can't
It's
remember your
fine.
last. Okay.
No, not at this point. I really appreciate your time and the professionalism of your staff and working with them. We feel like we brought a complete application and proposal to you tonight. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. I'm going to open up comments to the public. If you'd like to make a comment, please step up to the podium.
Hello. My
Hi,
name is-
welcome.
My name is Darlene Wilson. I live in the Wildflower Development. My question is, you just stated that the private parks are going to be public parks. Is that correct? Okay, so we as the homeowners are paying for those parks, which we have been promised, which we have not seen any of. We've been there for 3 years now and nothing has been done. So my question is, if they're going to become public parks, is the city chipping in for those? And the maintenance and the upkeep on those? Or is we as residents paying for it totally?
Yeah, please make your comments, and then after we close, and then we will address your questions after we close. So,
Those are my questions.
okay.
State your address as well.
Yeah, she did. Right,
747
enough?
West Gladiolus Circle.
okay, I'm sorry. All right, thank you for that. All right, so specifically what your question is,
If we as the residents are paying for those parks, why are they open to the public? We're paying to build them and maintain them, correct? And then why are they open to the public? And is the city going to then kick in to update, upkeep on those parks so the residents don't carry the burden of those parks if it's open to the general public?
okay,
And then my question is, when are they getting built?
okay, and when they're going to be built.
We've been here 3 years, nothing's been done. So those are all my questions.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay, I will close public comment at this point, and then I'd like to, can you answer the question?
Yeah, so as far as the timing of the parks, so in the community plan, it's the same language that's in the Mount Saratoga plan that requires that open space needs to commence construction by the time 40% of all building permits are issued. So we stop issuing building permits until that happens. And then the open space needs to be completed by 80% of issuance of building permits, but it's on a village by village basis.
So do you have an idea of when this will happen for that particular park? Or that
Village 1 is pretty close to, they've started construction on the Golden Hills Park, which is the main open space in Village 1. This village was under construction and more than 50% completed before the rewrite of the community plan. And so that is the main open space. That's where the amenities are. So all the rest of the open space is just pocket parks, not a lot of amenities installed in Village 1. The other villages haven't gotten very far. So they've started some phasing, but they haven't gotten too many homes. I don't know exactly which village she lives in, but that's how it works based on the community plan. And then as far as the public open space, Nate, did you want to speak to that?
Sure. And I appreciate the public's input on this. We are anxious to finish the parks in the Wildflower Project and are actively working, as Tippy has said, to do that in the areas where we have been developing. We've been having some conversations. This isn't on the request tonight. It's not a part of what we're asking for, just to be clear. The parks is a separate issue. We will be bringing that forward in the future, but it's not really what we're here to talk about tonight. And I'll make an effort if those who are here tonight to talk about the parks would like to do that outside of this meeting. I'll make sure to find them and give them more thorough update. But to bring you up to speed as to the comments that have been made by Tippy of the process that we're looking at. We pay an impact fee under your capital facility plan to maintain a specific level of service to the parks, number of acres to the number of thousands of people that are in your city, so that those parks that are public remain open to everyone. That has been dealt with a little bit differently in different areas of your city. The Harvest Hills project next to us has some private parks that have public open space easements over the top of them. Some trails are privately maintained and we have public easements over the top of them. We have always anticipated that this public-private component of the project would be addressed by maintaining the level of service required under your capital facility plan and applying the impact fees that would be paid for those specific uses within the project. The other option that we have is that we pay the impact fees, and then the city has a requirement under your capital facility plan to go find other areas to offset that public need and obligation. And we would rather see those developed and built within the Wildflower Master Plan in the areas where the people that are impacting your level of service are living and located. So we've been working with your staff to make sure that we meet both obligations, the obligation under our capital or under our community plan, which has 30% open space requirements and a park plan that is now on your screen showing the open space areas, but working also to include that development of those areas to meet your level of service requirements under your capital facility plan. I didn't bring a plan or a proposal tonight to outlay for you tonight to go through those details, but we are working on them. We're very cognizant that we haven't finished the parks as quickly as we had anticipated. We still meet the ordinance, but sometimes meeting the ordinance isn't always what people like. We would prefer to have the parks finished before anybody moves in. So, as a developer, we get the most bang for our buck when our improvements are in up front, rather than people moving in and then we spend money to areas where they're already living, right? We're motivated to get these parks done quickly. We're committed to doing that. We're anxiously engaged in finishing those parks. The process of figuring out how to incorporate the capital facility plan requirements into the private open space areas of the open space requirements of the community plan is something we're working with your staff, and we'll be back to talk to you about that. I hope that answers your questions tonight about that. I'd be happy to go into more details if needed.
And to add to that really quickly, so the addition of these pages before you today that we just got a couple days ago per Jeremy's request, just have that little notice on the bottom left that states that we're going to bring this back, and these have to be updated in a forthcoming community plan amendment, just so we can codify these items that we need to discuss.
Is that in the condition?
So I added it. So at the bottom here, new added conditions of approval, and then I've added it at the bottom right here on this slide as well for you.
Okay, thank you for that. Since the item that we were discussing tonight is not necessarily completely about the parks, I think your explanation is satisfactory for us, unless you have a question about that, anyone on the commission does. But as far as the comment that we had, if I encourage you to reach out to the applicant here, because he's here, and maybe get some more detailed questions answered about your particular situation. But if there's no other comments from the public, I'm going to go ahead and close the public. Did I already close it? Yeah. Sorry, I already closed it. Okay, then instead, I'm going to go ahead and open it to the planning commissioners. Sure.
Because I don't know how much everybody knows about impact fees and things like that. So when a park is dedicated to the city maintains it. And when a park is dedicated or owned by the HOA maintains it. So, I mean, that's just the over, if it's HOA owned, but there's, sometimes on our regional trails, it's HOA owned property, and there's a regional trail on it that will have a public access easement. There are other cases where there are public parks or private parks with public easements on them. So I don't know which scenario we're talking about here, but even in those cases, usually it's when our regional trails go through those. And then each development has a certain amount of open space fees and credits, so they still get those, when their amenities count towards their points, they don't also get fee waivers or impact fee reductions. That being said, in terms of some of the open space within this development, the water lines weren't there yet. So when Nate says we would love to put in parks before anybody even comes, but a lot of times they had to put in the development to get the water lines to the area. And so in terms of development, they're building homes and the park is here. So the way that Tippy explained the agreement, where 40% of, so the agreement we all came to, the city and the developer, that was approved by the city council was what Tippy explained, that 40% they have to start, if they haven't started, once 40% of the permits have issued, we won't issue anymore.
Can I ask a question to that? How does the city enforce that or know that that's taking place?
We keep track of building permits. So occasionally, like every month, we get building permit numbers, but I also work with the building department, and the applicant contacts the building department to make sure we're up to date on a village by village basis.
But do you is there a physical inspection to say like, okay, we're at this percentage, I'm driving out there, I'm seeing that there are improvements being made to what is going, like that the process has started in and of itself?
Yeah, so Village 1 is the only one that has met the 40% building permit threshold at first. So we have required that they commence construction on their Golden Hills Park in that area, or else we would issue a stop, like no more building permits. But they can continue working on the building permits that have been issued. So, we are limited to enforcement based on building permit issuance. But for that one, we did have construction commence. I don't think we really, we didn't get there before they started on that project. So we didn't come close to that threshold, if that makes sense. So we haven't had to go out and send an inspection. But Brad, our code enforcement, what's his title? Code compliance officer. Yeah, our code compliance officer does go out there if we need him to check things like that.
There's some sort of trigger in place that says, oh, we're at the 40%, we need to go double check.
Correct. And I do like to do a drive-by for certain items, whether it's a park or not, as well.
It's a follow-up. And then you had mentioned, Tippy, that the park has to be completed by the time that we reach how many permits?
80%.
80%?
Yeah, so we're pretty close to approval of 80% of the lots in the plats, but they haven't applied for all the building permits yet. So that one's going to take some more looking at.
That gives them plenty of time to finish the park. Depending on the complexity of the park, I know can take a while.
We are under construction. We are actively working to finish that park. That said, I don't want to be insensitive. We do have residents that moved in 3 years ago and have been waiting patiently. And like all of us, we'd like development to happen fast and homes to go forward. This hasn't been a function of we're waiting for more homes to be built to build the park. This has been a function of, as Tippy said, getting the right infrastructure in place so that we could put the landscaping and then water it. It's just a function of we've got to get the lines extended to the right area.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Can I ask I know it's neither here nor there for tonight. I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves for the discussion to come with it, but great public comment, good question. I'm guessing, and I don't know how we do this, but just from Ms. Wilson, from your comment, is it HOA dues that you're paying into, correct? With an expectation that all these parks are going to be yours privately? How does that work then when the city then says, oh no, we're gonna take these over, but these folks have been living there for 3 years paying dues with the expectation that, hey, I'm going to go get this park, and Reed's dog's not going to be able to go in there and do his business because it's my park. You see what I'm saying? So what happens to that? Because I would be a little upset, I guess, if I was a resident and I'm paying into with the expectation that this is going to be my park. And I do, like in my neighborhood, we have that. Like we have Stillwater Park, right? I pay dues for the amenities that are in my neighborhood. And I don't like it when other people come into our park that aren't paying for it. Like I'll speak frankly.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off just a little, just because that the city doesn't regulate what an HOA charges, and, you know, that's.
I understand that, but the city is getting involved at this point to say, we're going to take this park over and make it public. And I know that the city is going to take great care of it from here on out, right? The city's going to maintain, I understand all of that, like they're
But
not.
that being said, we're not involved in their fees, meaning we don't know what they're paying and we don't know what they're paying for, meaning those parks aren't complete. I don't know what, we as a city have no idea what they're being charged for or not charged for. So we as a city do not get involved in HOA fees.
Nor am I asking, that's not my point at all. Like, that's not what I'm asking at all.
No, let's first finish Commissioner Ryan's comments.
I'm not asking the city to get involved or to manage a dispute resolution, but there is a change happening so that when you come in and you're presented an option like been sold, these people have been sold to say, hey, you're going to have this private park, but you're going to pay these HOA dues, and now it's going to be a public park, right? So how does that affect, I mean, because they've put all this money into it, and apparently the park hasn't been built yet.
What I'm saying is that's not a question for us as the city to.
It is and it isn't, because the city is now saying to the developer, yes, we'll come and take it over.
So if I can just add here, we will have this discussion the next time we have the fourth major amendment
And I
come
know
forward.
I'm ahead of the game.
And so the city, when we've talked to the applicant in the past, have looked at those types of questions in terms of what areas we would accept. And there are some like master plan trail corridors that already have to have public access easements that we were looking at accepting. So we have considered that when we were looking at the different parks that are within Wildflower. So if you keep that in mind, we will have that discussion with the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, I'd like to, if you're okay, Commissioner Ryan, Commissioner McConkey.
Just a simple request, when we have that discussion, it might be helpful to just discuss what the process is about, because I think if I understand this correctly, the city doesn't go out and say, we would like that to be part of a public park, but it would be more the, maybe the applicant or someone would come to the city and say, we'd like for you to consider this as a city park rather than, and then that would, anyway, just, it might be helpful to just have a conversation of how that works in the background.
Yeah, and again, when we do have that conversation, we'll be discussing ownership. We wouldn't be discussing any disputes the owners have with.
Yeah, it would be a
They've
private
Yeah.
matter.
And I understand
Yeah,
that,
so-
Sarah, I understand that, but we are inserting ourselves into the equation now.
No, we're not inserting ourselves. So
So this
I'm gonna,
is an impact fee
I'm gonna
discussion.
stop this. I'm gonna
this is-
stop this
yeah,
discussion because again, it does not pertain to the application. One thing I do want to say is the city. What I think what planning director is saying is that we're not inserting ourselves. The applicant requests a park to be taken over by the city. So the applicant does that, and the city considers the request, but it has nothing to do with what came before within the development. And so I think the planning director made that clear, and so we'll just move on because this will be a topic that we will have in the future, and it's not really that germane to the application. So let's go ahead and move on. Do the commissioners have any other questions regarding the application?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
Question. I had to get my bearings back again. All right. So going back to the topic, initial topic, driveway lengths was the issue, correct? And driveway versus apron, and apron is not a driveway. It's maybe a short
Yeah.
driveway, but it's not a defined. My first question is, were these driveway lengths an oversight?
No. So when they submitted, the requirement was for 20-foot garage setbacks within this village plan, within this housing type. And when they submitted their site plan, I told them no. So we worked with the applicant to look at their options, and this amendment is one of the options. It was shown like this in the community plan, but the setback standards still were 20 feet. And so as a compromise, we asked the applicant to show that they still meet the current standards. So if they submitted this application not in a community plan, would they meet that standard? And so this neighborhood, the site plan for what you're looking at here on the bottom right of the does meet the city standard for guest parking with the aprons, with the way that the code is written today. And they do provide extra guest parking. You can't really tell on this, but they'll provide additional guest parking off-street. Staff was very hesitant to support this request, but it does meet the code if it was just under Title 19, so that's fair. And then we ask that it only be allowed in this area in Village 7, so that no future, if there's any other type 4, this is one of the last townhome developments in Wildflower left, if there are any future townhome developments, that this doesn't happen again.
Okay, and that somewhat answered my other question is regarding the guest parking. 19.9.511 requires the ratio of one stall per unit.
Right.
Correct? And so my question is, how many units would be, is being requested to have the apron? Actually, 3 questions. How many units, where are those same number of guest parking stalls located, and are they all within 200 feet of each dwelling?
Yeah, so in the staff report, I have included the applicant's letter is Exhibit A, I believe, to this item. They've included their calculations for the number of stalls, the guest stalls. They're, even though it's like 3 or 4 streets that are shown with the requested rear-loaded shortened driveway product, it's somewhere around 50 units. And so they do meet those standards for those 50 units. As far as the distance, I'll have to get my notes out for the site plan review, but from off the top of my head, that it does meet the current code standards. Just for those, the highlighted streets here are where you can kind of see where they have the shortened driveways.
Okay, so just a little bit of interpretation on the code. Because it says, I don't think I quoted it in my notes here, that the guest parking needs to be located within the 200 feet of the dwelling unit, and that my question is, does staff interpret that as from the building cluster or from each unit?
From each unit, each individual unit.
Which would make sense, because
yeah, and also like potentially some units might not have the same. Some might have 20 feet, not in this product, but there's potential for a townhome row for one to have 20 feet and then another to not. So I think that's the intent of the code. It is we adopted it earlier this year, but
yeah, and I think it's
haven't.
I think that's a great code. So my last question would be, I think it's my last question. So if this was a change from what was initially approved, then, well, actually 2 questions. What happens if the commission, if the city council does not approve the request? Number 1, and number 2, what's the impact of this? Because the setback, I mean, that's a 15-foot decrease in the setback. How's that going to affect the I can't think of the word, not the aura, but of the design or the desirability of that community. As to me, it turns it more into, it changes, certainly changes. So if the city does not approve the request, then are we still maintaining I don't want to really ask what the impact is, because it's almost neither here nor there to me.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to redo this entire site plan.
They'd have to redesign site plan.
And still show 20% open space within the townhome.
So I'd like to ask, what was the purpose of of the design, is there, because it looks like we can still maintain the same number of units. Are we losing open space, or what's the?
I think the setbacks, they would struggle meeting the setbacks between certain buildings if they had to push those buildings back a few more feet.
Move the
It is a
street.
pretty tight townhome area.
If it's okay, maybe I can
Yeah,
add
I'd
some
love
clarity
to-
to that.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, and I'm happy to just
No, you're.
let it go. But there's a grade issue on the site, and so as we've dealt with transitioning from the topography and building retaining walls and balancing what cuts and fills we're making, it makes it somewhat difficult to get the roads to stay within their appropriate
Sure. Yeah, fair enough.
stuff. And so that's where it ended up. As far as the new code that you have in place, I agree with you. I believe it's a good code. We meet that code. We fall under the Wildflower Community Plan in our own code, which is more stringent on this issue than your existing code. The community plan itself actually shows this road layout. Because at the time we did the community plan, we didn't have all the information as to how it would be impacted by the topography.
Sure.
We got to this point now where we're realizing that there are 3 streets that are impacted, and our request tonight is that you allow us to proceed with your existing code, which would then mean we are compliant.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, then I'll make my comments. So on that picture there, or image, how wide are the streets that are in yellow highlight?
26 feet.
And
So that's part of this amendment here, is that we were, like, that was meant to be essentially the shared driveway width, but it got adopted as a private road section. So they've used it as the private roads in their townhome areas, and some of them like this. So we were struggling to have a standard location for public utilities within these smaller streets to address the required separations between, sewer and water lines and that sort of thing. So the utility sheets as part of this amendment address that, and they are able to meet our separation standards for utilities.
okay. And will cars be allowed to park on the curbs of those highlighted streets?
No. No, even if they had 20-foot driveways, they would not be able. There's not enough space on those townhome rows for cars to park. And they are quite long townhome structures as well. On the north side, they've also added on-street parking. They've worked with the fire chief to try to make sure that that's compliant with what's required. But they have parallel parking that is off-street, counting toward their off-street parking requirement.
So when we say they won't be able to, will that mean that we'll actually paint the curbs red so they can't do it?
Well, they'll have to have signs at least. I'm not sure about the red curbs.
I don't
Well,
know
I mean,
exactly what's.
I don't know if it's necessarily red curb, but you said that they won't be able to, but, okay, so they won't physically be able to, but will there be like something that says that they cannot do that, like park on those curbs?
Yes, my understanding is that if it's not a red curb, there'll be signage, and it will be actively enforced by the HOA.
Okay. And then there are little lines, like perforation lines on the upper left street, what are those little dashes or?
Oh, that's the parking, like the parallel parking on the streets.
So then they can park on those?
On that street, just that north end, like.
Oh, just on the, yeah.
Just the north side, on both sides.
Okay, yeah, that's actually.
Yeah, and that's not the final layout, that was just what was in the village plan.
Okay. Yeah, so on one of the phases of the community that I live in, there are townhomes that were built, it was in the first phase, so back about 20 years ago. And many of those homes do not have driveways either. They just like a 5-foot apron type of thing. And but like you were saying earlier, some of the houses did have 20 and some didn't. And I don't know who did it, if it's the city or if it's the HOA had it done, but they did paint, they put signs up. They also painted because people couldn't see the signs at night. So they would then paint the curbs red, kind of like as if there were a hydrant there or something like that. and it does have to be enforced because, again, some homes do have the 20-foot and some don't. This is a little bit easier to see because all of the homes in that stretch won't. But what the people end up doing is just because they don't want to have to walk from the other available parking, is they just park their cars, is it horizontally?
In front of the driveway? Yeah.
on top of the apron. And that's okay because it's their property, but at the same time, the cars then often sticks out into because these are townhomes, they stick out into the neighbor's apron. So that's something that just the HOA is really gonna have to pay attention to. I don't think there've been any major complaints or anything like that, but I think everyone's just trying to be tolerant, but it is something that does need to be really monitored. Especially just for safety, if there's a fire or something like that. So, but otherwise, I guess since you're meeting code, there's really not much more, unless we have some issues with that safety-wise, but I don't think there's really that much more that we could really ask. Any other comments? Okay, then I will open for a motion on this item.
If you'll turn on my mic.
Turn on everyone's.
There it is.
I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the major amendment to the Wildflower Community Plan located approximately Harvest Hills Boulevard and Mountain View Corridor based on the findings and conditions in the staff report with the addition of conditions 8 and 9 as presented this evening, the added conditions recommended by staff.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Got a second from Commissioner McConkey. Any questions to the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you. It passes unanimously.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. We've been going an hour and a half. Do we want a break? Are we good?
Sure.
I'm good.
Break? Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break then.
Because there's ice cream in the conference room. That's really nice of you guys. Just kidding.
Is that where you went? Oh, no.
Just kidding.
We need some. We need an ice cream bar for everything, right? Like, then we'll be looking for.
So I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's been a little bit more than 5 minutes. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is item number.
Three feels like just kidding.
Item number. I'm going to use this thing. Item number 8, public hearing, Saratoga Commons rezone from regional commercial to heavy commercial. We're on 7. I'm sorry I apologize to the applicant. Item number 7, oh yeah, it is. Public hearing, southwest corner of Pioneer Crossing and Saratoga Road rezone from industrial to regional commercial. This is city initiated. And I believe, Kent, you're going to be presenting? Yes. Thank you.
There we are.
Oh, wrong one.
So yeah, this is a city initiated. It's kind of a cleanup, if you will. It's right on the southwest corner of Pioneer Crossing and Saratoga Road. It's currently zoned industrial. The general plan anticipates this property to be zoned regional commercial, and that is the request of the city to rezone this property. It's 2.18 acres from industrial to regional commercial. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to address those at this time. We hear the displays of showing the general plan land use designation as regional commercial. This is the current zoning as industrial with the surrounding zonings. And then the relationship of the proposed like Saratoga Commons preliminary plat with the rezone and the Saratoga Commons tag and go site plan, which we addressed last meeting with the rezone area. And then we have some recommendations so that you could consider.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. This is a public hearing, so I'll open up the podium to anyone here who wants to make a comment on this item.
Logan Johnson with Wright Development Group. Our address is 1178 West and Legacy Crossing in Centerville, Utah. We are the property owners here, and this is something that we didn't even know was necessary. We thought the development agreement triggered this rezone automatically, but staff, I think, is making sure everything's buttoned up, so that's the reason why it's in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'm going to close public hearing and open up to the commissioners for their comments and questions. Commissioner McConkey?
I just want to say I think it makes sense.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, as there are no other comments, I'm opening the, I don't know how to say that. Okay, so I'm entertaining a motion.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council for the request to rezone 2.18 acres on the southwest corner of Pioneer Crossing and Saratoga Road, industrial to regional commercial as outlined in the exhibits and subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Oh, faster. Okay, we got a motion. Any second?
Second.
We got a second from Commissioner Ryan. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Okay, the motion passes, or the item passes unanimously. Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you for that. Now we're back on track with my mind. Item number 8, public hearing for Saratoga Commons rezone from regional commercial to heavy commercial located near the southwest corner of Pioneer Crossing and Saratoga Road. Logan Johnson from Wright Development is the applicant. And we had, yep, thank you for being there, Chippy, and please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening again, Commissioners. This rezone is the southwest portion of the same development for the last item, but this time the applicant is requesting that square you see on your screen here to be rezoned to heavy commercial. This will be our first heavy commercial zoned property within the city. At the time of the application, we were still in the middle of our general plan process that we hadn't adopted, and there was no designation for heavy commercial within the general plan. So we didn't know which properties would or should be designated heavy commercial for the land use designation. So staff accepted this application and determined that the changes proposed are compatible with the surrounding land uses and with the existing general plan designation at the time. And then this is the concept plan that they proposed. This also goes along with the Saratoga Commons preliminary plat subdivision that you saw at the last meeting. And this is just for the 22,000 square foot building on the southwest corner. And this would just be for a flex office building. Those are the proposed elevations. So staff had a handful of comments in there referring to different parts of code that a site plan application would have to address. And then at this time, I'll turn this over to the commissioners for discussion.
Okay, thank you for that. Is the applicant here? Okay. You've already done it so, but let's just do it again. Could you please state your name and your address?
Logan Johnson, right developer, 1178 West Legacy Crossing in Centerville, Utah. Thank you.
Okay.
The reason for this, we've purchased this property and owned it for a little while. When we tried to annex in, when we annexed in with this property, the zone we wanted in the back was in flux or didn't exist. And so we, at the advice of David, who I think is no longer with the city, just came in all regional commercial. And then when the city finalized that new zone, we analyzed the heavy commercial zone. And we think it's a better fit because we're struggling to get the users that we would get in that regional commercial zone off the frontage of the street. And so as we've marketed it out, we've been unable to find a good fit in the list of allowed uses in the regional commercial zone. So this heavy commercial in the back we think is consistent with the neighbors around. It kind of squares off what's happening to the south of us. We will retain ownership of the property up against the street, and we just think it's going to be a better fit generally. And we made our case in the staff report. I'm sure you guys have reviewed that. So happy to answer any questions you have beyond that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the podium up for any public comments. If you have any, please step up to the podium. Looks like we do not have any comments, so I'm going to close public hearing and open it up to the Planning Commission. Oh. So first, Commissioner Ryan.
Oh, mine was already on, Mr. Chair. I don't have a comment. Thank you.
Oh, okay. And then Commissioner Barton.
Mine was already on too.
Oh, okay. And then Commissioner Anderson.
Do we notice, so on the other side of Old Saratoga Road, that's Lehigh City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we notice other citizens of other cities when we do development? Is that?
Yes, the 300-foot noticing requirement applies regardless of city.
Okay.
So it's just every property owner within 300 feet.
Okay, and so were residents noticed in this instance that they fall in that range?
For the rezone, yes. Yeah, we had a mailed notice within 300 feet for this.
Great, that's all. That was just an educational thing for me. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? I'll make mine then. Sorry, I got to find the page here. This page, okay. This is on, what happened? I think it's the engineering, on the engineering report, there's on number C3, it says applicant will need to submit an LID feasibility study with the site plan to develop this lot. What is an LID feasibility study?
That's low impact development.
Yeah, Scott's right next to you, so.
Sorry, you were looking at me.
No, it's fine.
It's not?
There, now it's on. So it's low-impact feasibility study. It's going to be to determine if they can do things like infiltrate it back, the rainwater back into the ground, or how they can capture that without dumping that flow into the system. We try to capture the 80th percentile storms, so we try to capture a good portion and put it and return it into the surface as opposed to creating more runoff through our system.
I hadn't noticed that in previous engineering reports. Is it something I missed, or is it something new, or is it something that pertains to this particular property?
This property in general was probably going to have a tough time getting being feasible to infiltrate because it's got high groundwater in the area. But it's something that we commonly do. I can't remember if we haven't received the report. It's one of our requirements that all developments submit the LID feasibility study and what they intend to do to meet the requirements for the MS4.
And if the property is prone to some kind of issue that's brought out in one of these reports, then what happens is just to figure out how to mitigate it, or
Yeah, ultimately, if they cannot capture and infiltrate or provide another means of LID, then we will go into the routed to a detention pond or in-ground detention system and then into the drainage system, and it would, from this location, would ultimately outfall into Jordan River.
Okay, and it's required, I think it says, with the site plan. So if that does come back with things that have to be done, is that not too late since we already have a site plan, or?
Okay, so I'll step back. No,
we're not, yeah.
The instance with this, we had tag and go, and then, so now we have 3 lots that are going to site. From what I was informed, each individual lot is going to be responsible for their infiltration /LID/detention because it's going to fall upon the property owner. That may be incorrect. They could have taken the option to have like a master detention area where they took care of the entire development, but it's going to be based upon each individual. That is the reason why that comment's in there, because they're going to have each individual's site managed separately for their storm drain systems.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And then the same engineering report, number 5. Any anticipated issues regarding the coordination with Lehigh about the proposed storm drainage plan?
It's been a struggle, but today we had some positive movement with the development to the south. I don't foresee any particular major issues, but the interlocal agreement between Lehigh and Saratoga Springs did not have enough information to show what Lehigh's intent for it was, and we just want Lehigh to be involved in accepting the water since it is flowing ultimately into their storm drain system.
So is the onus of that on the city?
It's on the applicant to reach out, and in the instance of Saratoga Commons, there's 2 areas. They're going to have to extend a stormwater pipe that's existing in the roadway, and then they're going to be tying into the North Shore Commerce system to feed down into the Lehigh storm drain system.
Is the applicant prepared to deal with these potential coordination issues?
Yeah, they aren't news to us. And, it's been a little interesting to learn the weird relationship on utilities in Lehigh City and Saratoga. They're a little unique, but it's known to us and we're working through it. And so I don't know that I can speak to the specifics on the pipe in the street, but, we've always planned on dumping our storm drain down through that other project. We have easement agreements with them to do that, so.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to
I always forget to do that. Yep.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council for the request to rezone the 2.18 acres on the southwest corner of Pioneer Crossing and Saratoga Road from industrial. I'm reading the wrong one.
Yeah.
Where did I? How did I skip that? Well, anybody else can make the motion if you want.
I can jump in. I move to recommend approval of the city council, the rezone request from regional commercial to heavy commercial at approximately 660 North Saratoga Road as outlined in Exhibit 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report and as presented this evening, September 22nd, 2022.
That was faster than Commissioner Bart.
Jeez.
And Commissioner Anderson seconds. Okay. Any questions to the motion? All right, then, all those in favor, vote or say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Congratulations, unanimous. Thank you. Myself off. All right, what time is it? It's 8 o'clock. Do we really want to do item number? 30 minutes, so you can do it tonight or you can do it another night? I've got my friend from Sacramento. I wish. Yeah.
Talk about bias.
Wait, yeah, go ahead.
On our next agenda, 2 site plans, a preliminary plat, and some code amendments on October 13th. So if you do not want 30 minutes of training tonight, we could bump you again. So,
Wait, what'd you guys say? What'd you guys?
Do it as a party gift. Anderson.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you could really use the training.
And we do want to announce that too. So this will be Commissioner Anderson's last meeting, and we'll officially recognize him at a city council meeting coming up. So, and just to say thanks. So it's been almost 4 years, and we're grateful for his service.
Over 4 years.
Oh, over 4 years.
I started in June 2018.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I want to get to that in a second. So is it okay if we go? Okay, do we need a motion to table it, or since it was on the agenda, or?
I don't think with training you do. No, because it's not a.
Okay, I'm sorry that we keep pushing it off. We really want to. Yeah, it's not you. It's not you. It's us. And we don't want. We don't.
It's understandable after a long meeting.
Yeah, it was kind of long. Okay, so definitely when Troy is here.
Motion to table. Otherwise, if you go back and look at the minutes, someone was just looking at it, they would training this evening.
Sure.
I'm writing on the minutes that you asked to discuss it at the next meeting.
Let's take a motion. Let's take a motion. I'm open to the motion.
I run an association for a living, and it's better to be
Safe and sorry.
Agreed. Open for a motion.
I motion that we table item number 9 for a future meeting date.
Second.
Got a second? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, so I apologize. We keep doing this to you, but I'm glad. All right.
Every meeting. Saying the same stuff.
You're awesome.
Okay, let me myself. Okay, and then item number 10 is approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any issues? Any comments?
I have a couple quick minutes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Minutes. And edited. I emailed and I thought that Nikki had said something about how she made it.
I didn't.
Probably did. I have a paper copy right here. She didn't mention it.
Okay. It was just in passing. I don't know if she's talking to me or somebody else.
Oh, my guess is she made those changes. And this is the paper copy.
Okay.
Yeah, there were two.
Just that clarification.
Yeah, I think, she's really efficient, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we didn't receive them, so we'll just go ahead with Commissioner Ryan's comments.
Well, and do you want to
Oh.
state what they were then? So then they can be in the motion?
Okay, we could do that as soon as
After
Commissioner Ryan's done.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Important than I am.
No, you were.
We got to get Mr. Kilgore out of here.
You were
Okay,
first.
fine. Really quickly, line 87. It says lumbar at big box stores. It should be lumber.
I missed that.
I'll check Wunderkamp.
And then another one on line number 366. It says he heard should not be limiting. It said he heard we should. We just need a we in there. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. And then Commissioner McConkey?
It's in my email, but I can't access email.
Oh,
in here.
okay,
I don't remember what line number it was.
I will get to it.
I don't remember what it was about either.
It was.
Oh, it was it was the business, the home business.
It's just taking a minute. Okay,
Oh, yeah, so it's
you got it?
line number 28. Yes. Line number 28, the applicant mentioned they believe it will only be 20, and I just requested that clarification be added after 20 to say on a daily basis, I believe is what I
20
requested.
per day, the number
Per
of.
day, yeah.
Yeah. So after the number 20, add per day
Correct.
on line 28. Okay.
That was all I had.
Okay, thank you for that. If we're done with comments, then I'll take a motion.
Commissioner Ryan, I motion we approve the minutes from September 8th, 2022 as edited and presented this evening.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We got a second as well. Any questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay, the minutes are approved. And then let me clear. This is a pain in the butt. This, number 11, item number 11, reports of action.
So the September 20th City Council, or wait, is that the right date? Sorry, the council meeting, there wasn't one between your last two meetings, so there's nothing to report from that. It was, yeah, September 20th was canceled. And then your upcoming items, right now, it looks like we have 4 items on the next agenda. So we've been talking about a gateway overlay ordinance. We're hoping to present a draft of that to you for review and recommendation. And then a commercial site plan, a commercial plat, and possibly a big commercial site plan. We'll see if they make it or not. So I'm not going to say which one. That's it. Oh, and then as we mentioned, this is Bryce Anderson's last meeting. So yeah, we appreciate all your service. It's been great to have you.
Sad to lose you.
Do you want to say anything?
Yeah. Hit the parade.
Yeah, I started in June of 2018, and it went really fast.
Can I ask you how many kids you've had since then? I'm being serious, like you've had a couple since I've
I've
been here.
had 3.
Okay, so that's not too
3
bad.
kids in 4 years. We just had our 7th child, and life's really busy and fun, and my wife and I both felt like there was a time to change. And so it's not you guys, it's me. It's been really fun. It's been fun to look back over the last 4 years, and we had COVID, and we've done some cool projects like Beacon Point and Costco.
Been a lot happened in the last 4
Been
years.
a lot of change in the 4 years, and it's been fun to kind of have a front row seat. And I love this community. I'm grateful I get to raise my kids here. I have all the confidence in the world in this city, the staff here, the leadership we have in place. And I'm grateful I got to kind of rub shoulders with you guys and kind of pick up some of your great attributes that you have. So thanks for bringing me along, and I learned a lot, and I hope to return. I still have a term left if I want to return someday.
There you
right?
go.
So anyway, but that won't be for a while. So it's just a real tender time for my family. We've got a really young family, and my parents and my in-laws are getting older, and there's some dynamics there so anyway, it just is the time to step away now, but I'm grateful, so thank you.
Appreciate the comments. I think of all of us, I've been working with you the longest.
You're right.
Other than possibly Troy.
I've sat by Ken every time for the last 4 years. On that side or this side, I've always, that's not true. Troy sat between us, that's
Yeah.
right. Ken's always been
I
close.
appreciate Commissioner Anderson's points of view. All of us have our individual points of view, and it's welcome. That's why there's so many commissioners, not just one. You know, it all contributes. But Commissioner Anderson, especially during all these years through change and such, you always. I like the fact that you present a unique point of view that comes just from you, but it does represent a lot of folks in the community. And of course, that's not our principal job, but it's great that you put that forward. Because I don't often do that, and I think some of us don't often do that. So it's always great to have someone who does. That's the whole reason why we have so many people here, and that diversity really helps. And you're going to be missed. It's a loss to us, but hopefully we'll get a better replacement.
That's for sure. That's
Yeah. Okay. Well, terrific, and all the best. I'm sure from all of us, all the best to you and your endeavors, and enjoy some of the planning that you did in the community with your kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Okay. Okay. We're going to go to the 12th item on the agenda. Commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments?
I just wanted to say that
Yours?
Troy and I were at the DI. Well, you were there too, weren't you?
I was
Dedication? You were there. Did I see you there, Reed?
No, I wasn't there. I was
Okay.
I was out of town.
Brain cramp. Yes, I did see you there. It was good.
It's an
It was
impressive.
neat.
It's an
Yeah,
impressive
it was actually a lot better than I anticipated it was going to be. So, not that I was
I think
anticipating
people are waiting
something
for that
terrible,
one.
but
They're waiting for Home Depot.
yeah, it was really interesting. And there are some comments that were made on the Saratoga Springs Link Facebook page. It was interesting, some conversation going back and forth between people that felt like, shopping at DI was the low life, whereas others had the perspective of it's an opportunity to support those who are needing some training and, who are trying to make some changes in their life that are working there. And even some other, opportunities. Some people love to collect stuff. And so that's where they go. It was just really interesting just to see the dynamics in the conversation, discussion, how it's going to really affect our community. So.
I know the younger folks, they love thrifting.
Love it.
It's come back again,
Really
you know.
has. They love it.
Yeah, and my daughter, I think half her wardrobe, her college wardrobe is all from thrift shops and DI stores. So I don't know who thinks it's low life. Well, maybe it is, but that means all our younger generation is starting from the bottom and they're going to move up. So it's great that we can recycle.
What's cool,
some of the stuff there is amazing.
What's cool about the facility, though, is you have a storehouse, you have a home storage center, you have family services, counseling, and employment counseling. Like, it's a lot more than just a thrift store there.
And a liquor store nearby.
Exactly. And people go to Costco and they drop off the old stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Any other comments? All right, we'll move on to item number 13, Director's Report.
Oh, okay. I guess I gave you the director's report for reports of action, but let me add also that Tippy got elected to be the Utah APA president.
Oh, yeah. Hey. Congratulations.
Deserved. Congratulations.
Yeah, so that's super exciting to have.
How many more
somebody
meetings
who
is
works
that?
for our city as the president for the Utah chapter. So super exciting.
2023 and 2024.
So are there
Fantastic.
perks or kickbacks to Saratoga Springs when that happens?
I'll get free conference registration and leadership training, I guess.
Nice.
Good job. Thank you for working. For your service, I guess. All right. If that's it, then item number 14. Do we have any need for a closed session tonight?
No.
No. Okay. That's it. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you. I don't know when.
On the 13th?
Weeks.
In 2 weeks. Okay. And adjourned.
October 13th.
Is that 3 weeks?
No,
That's fall
sorry,
break.
that's 3 weeks. Oh, fall break. Oh,
So do we take it off of that or no?
so we have October 27th.